Hello everybody, I hope you're having an amazing day today. And today I would like to share with you guys my final thoughts on the Spartan Harsey folder. This is the large full-size one, and yes, it is a very large knife. And I'm actually going to be scooting out the view of my camera just a little bit because I need some room with this thing for sure. Don't mind this over here. This is my laptop here off to the side. I'm going to be reading the specs and dimensions off of Spartan Blade Works' actual website really quick before my freaking computer dies. But the price of this on the website, and this may vary depending on when you're watching it. Has been available at multiple different retailers. So the price off of their website is $465. Yes, that is expensive. This is a very large, super robust, way overbuilt American produced folder. So honestly, it being in that price range kind of sounds about right. Let's look at some specs. So the blade length of this is 4 inches overall. The overall length is 8 and 3/16. The finish is a stone wash. That's the blade, that's the handle, that's everything except for the hardware, the titanium hardware and all that, even the clip. The blade thickness is 0.15. Blade steel is CPM S45VN, which is wonderful blade material. And they say that they have their hardness between 59 and 61. That sounds about right to me. Haven't really noticed much of a difference whether this is like super hard and chippy or super soft. Honestly, I haven't used this thing a whole lot just because it's so massive, and I only took it to work maybe about 2 days because this is absolutely insane for the kind of work that I do. Also, another thing too I wanted to mention is that they do have the grade of titaniums. It's 6AL-4V titanium, and the weight is 5.88 ounces. So this thing is an absolute freaking tank. Let's bring out some knives for size comparison. Really, this thing's only going to come close to maybe one knife in the size comparison, and that's going to be the Spyderco PM2. And you know what? It's larger than that. Not by much, but it is larger. Just a little bit longer. The handle, pretty much the same, but you get, I kid you not, almost a whole other inch of usable cutting edge there, which is crazy. So there's that. Let's do -5 lightweight. Civivi Elementum, Demco 80 20.5, Osborne 940, Benchmade, and last but not least, Benchmade Bug Out. So yes, this thing is freaking enormous, and the only reason why I got this was because of Wayne over at Wayne Sharpworld, another wonderful YouTuber. He was thinning out his collection, and he was deciding that this was one of the ones that he was willing to let go, which he offered it at a pretty amazing price. Off the top of my head, I can't remember how much he sold it to me for, but it was a steal. It really was, and especially for me to be able to check out something really cool. I personally would not pay full price for this because it's just not really something that I would typically look for. I've never really been in the market for a super overbuilt, heavily milled, titanium folder. I like stuff that's a little bit on the smaller side, compact, with a little bit more of a utilitarian style blade shape because of this work that I do. I go through a lot of plastic and cardboard and things like that at work, and well, I spend a lot of my time at work, so that's really the only place and time that I would be able to really interact and test my knives. At home, really this thing has only gone through a couple bags of like soil and potting mix, maybe some like mesh nets that some like bulbs came in for gardening purposes. I chopped some fruit with this. I went through a pineapple. I just took this thing and just started smashing it against a pineapple. This thing essentially could do just as much damage with the blade as it would be just throwing it at an item. It's it's just a freaking tank, and there is so much charm to that, in my opinion. While again, this isn't something that I typically would go for, and I'm not really in the market for stuff like this. I can appreciate a lot of factors that make this thing favorable amongst a lot of enthusiasts out there. And one of the things that I definitely appreciate about it is that this is a very robust design. This doesn't feel like a refined item. This feels like it was really, really meant to be used in the field, and really no use that I could ever possibly put any knife through will really truly test the limits of something like this. So just want to show you guys the lock up there. It is pretty freaking solid, and don't mind that, that's my dog barking in the background. We have some guys doing electrical work on the power poles that are in and around our house, and my dog doesn't like them, I guess. But there is just this crazy, I wouldn't say super sharp, but it is it's unrefined feeling. It's not something that was tumbled long enough to be able to knock that down. This is not just for show. This all back here, it is not just for show. It is meaningfully sharp, and it was left that way for a reason. Even here on the back, this is a knife that you could definitely choke up on if you really wanted to. And it is actually very comfortable. I did mess around with this thing with some like thick leather working gloves, gardening gloves, whatever you want to call them. No, they're not the little gardening gloves with the little flowers on them or whatever. No, they're just regular Milwaukee branded like tanned leather gloves, right? They're like the $20 ones you get at like Home Depot. So they're not operator gloves, you know, they're not hobo gloves with the missing fingertips. You know, they were full length leather gloves, and you know what? It was actually very easy for me to thumb flick it and reverse flick it. I have taken this apart multiple times and cleaned it and messed around with the detent strength. When I first got it, it was very tight, and I was just like, you know what, like eventually that's gonna break in. But Wayne did have this for a little bit of time, and I don't honestly know how much he actually played with it, opened and closed it, because that lock bar is honestly a little sharp and really maybe not something that one could comfortably play with, just being a couch warrior, whatever you want to call it. Just constantly playing with this and flipping it, while it feels super epic and just like I could take this to a tree and I wouldn't really I wouldn't really fear any damage that would come of it if I would just take this to a tree. But I decided that I would polish the washers and really try to clean out any little possible gunk or debris, and it has definitely smoothened up a lot. Now, it is not the kind of washer action that is of Benchmade's and Spyderco's, like even my Doug Ritter Hogue. The washer action on those, even my small Sebenza, while it is a very small knife in comparison, that's also another thing too that I want to mention. A lot of people tend to throw around the name Chris Reeve when they talk about Spartan Blade Works, and I think they're completely different. Personally, with my one experience, my one and only example of a with a Chris Reeve knife, that is an extremely refined piece of work. It really is. This while it is very sturdy and very well made, just like the Sebenza, this is very unrefined feeling. So I would really put this through much harder use and harder work than a Sebenza. Now, I'm not saying that that Chris Reeve knives can't hold up and can't be used the same way, but I don't know. It's very difficult to talk about them both because really I only have one example of a Chris Reeve knife because I am not made of money and I'm not willing to spend $600, $700 on you know, aftermarket pricing for other Chris Reeve models. Like I am in the market for an Encosine blade. I believe it's called an Encosi, the sheep's foot style blade. I really want one of those. And on NAF sale today, I was actually looking, and there's somebody that has a small 31 that is modded, yet they have in the item description that it's like brand new in box. It's not like brand new in box if it has a giant spidey hole replacing the thumb studs. Sorry, it's not, and it doesn't deserve to be at the same price point. The guy was asking like 600 bucks for it. Yeah, no, sorry. He also had a full size, or the large Sebenza 31 with the Encosine blade, and he also wanted 600 bucks for that too. And I was just like, well, it's a larger knife. This one didn't have the whole mod. It just had the one-sided thumb stud. And he also wanted 600 bucks for that one. I was just like, you know what? This doesn't make sense. The seller obviously doesn't know how the concept of like brand new in box means. And that, and me personally, I don't believe that nafsale.com is a place to try to scout people for knives. I do understand that Chris Reeve knives, they are expensive, and at $600, that is somebody trying to make maybe like a $75 profit, because I don't believe they're that much when they're brand new. And yes, they are hard to come by, I understand that, and on NAF sale you do have to consider that you do pay a portion to the website, also shipping costs and things like that. So I understand. I've sold multiple knives out of my collection on nafsale.com. It's a wonderful website, but really, I would love to get a hold of a large Sebenza to kind of go back and forth and be able to talk a little bit more confidently about the two. But me personally, with this being my only experience with the Spartan blade and my small Sebenza 31 being my only experience with a Chris Reeve knife, between the two, I can just say that the Sebenza feels like a much more refined piece. This doesn't. They're both extremely well made, but this is something that I personally would feel less concerned about taking to a tree if I decided to do so. So with that little rant out of the way, let me go over some, I guess, little interesting things about this. So let's talk about the hardware really quick. The pivot, I believe, is a T15. It is ginormous and extremely easy to take apart and disassemble. The rest of the hardware is T8, including the lefty plug that's here, and I do definitely enjoy that they added this little emblem on there. I like that. I think that's pretty cool. This item is perfectly centered, and the clip sits in pretty nicely. No major wiggle. There's the slightest little gap there, and it's something that I've noticed. A lot of other YouTubers, they mentioned that that the plug doesn't sit flush completely. To me and to my eye, it does. To my finger, not so much. So it feels very flush around the screw and about halfway, but at the very end right here, I could feel the slightest little lift. It's nothing crazy. I mean, I'm not ever gonna notice that. I don't notice it in hand. I don't notice it visually, but me personally, and you know, my unit now doesn't have that issue. Taking a look at these thumb studs, they are ginormous and they do protrude just the slightest bit past the scales, which makes it very easy to get at, whether it is slow rolling, very comfortable. Reverse flicking, now it's comfortable. When I got it, again, like it was really tight. And with polishing and putting some KPL ultra lightweight, I believe it's called, it still feels very robust. It's not super loosey-goosey, but it flicks out with definite authority. It just doesn't, it's not at that point where it's gonna drop. I have to use my thumb to bring it down. But again, it is very smooth. You can hear it. It sounds a little dry in there. I assume that it's still in the process of breaking in. You can hear it there. But lockup is completely rock solid, side to side, up or down. There's no movement in the pivot. This thing is wonderfully constructed. And really, I don't have a whole lot of bad to say about this thing. This little arrow that's in a clip, I think that's a cool little touch. It just goes with the Spartan theme, I suppose. I think it would have been cool if it was like a little like a sword instead of the arrow. I think that would be pretty cool, but the arrow's cool. It's not sharp at all. There's no part of this knife that doesn't feel inconsistent. And you know what I mean by that is that I guess the sharpness or the roughness of the jimping here is the same as it is over here. It's a little bit lighter on the spine of the knife, but everything is just, it's nice. It really is. Here's some branding on the blade. I don't really care for it. I don't really believe it needs to be there. You know, the Spartan logo, completely fine. The USA S45VN, it doesn't need to be there, honestly. Anybody who's purchasing this knife knows that they paid the money that they paid because it's a US freaking made knife. This would probably be half the price and possibly a little bit better made, a little bit more refined feeling if it was made overseas, but that's an argument that can go on and on and on. And but you know, we're not talking about that. We're just talking about the branding on the blade. Here on the back, I do like the logo, how it's, you know, laser engraved, but I believe that it could have been placed elsewhere, maybe in the scale. I mean, there's plenty of room for it. There's absolutely zero milling. That's something else too. There could have been. These scales are thick enough to where there could have been some weight relieving, but there isn't. So this is a, excuse me, very brash, unforgiving, just hard use folder for sure. And it's just, this feels more like a tool than an enthusiast's knife. Now, this isn't something that I would recommend to a lot of people if they're not in the market for something that is super robust and overbuilt. For example, like a lot of cold steels. Me personally, on my channel, I've never once spent a single cent on anything that is cold steel because I just don't really care for their designs, and a lot of their more simplistic, minimalist, utilitarian based designs, they're usually just in garbage steel that I'm just kind of like, eh. And I feel like at most of the time, at the models that I look at, I'm paying more for probably the name and the design more than the materials. And typically when I go shopping for a knife, I try to find a balance between the two, unless I really like the design and it just is something that really screams to me and really grabs my attention. Then I'm persuaded more to purchase it based on its overall design. So kind of like my my PM2. This isn't a knife that I use often, and I don't take this to work really at all anymore because it's too big for what I need it to be. But I like it so much, and I like the design. I love being able to you know, customize it and all that. So this is something that I've spent the money that I have on to get it to look like this because I love the design, not so much because I love using it. With this, it's going to be a keeper in the collection. I will be modifying it, doing different anodization jobs and finishes to it. I think that it'll be really cool to do something fun with this and just experiment with just a giant hunk of a freaking knife. And it's gonna be kind of like my PM2. I'm just not gonna use it all that often. But when I do use it, I know that it's going to be really epic to flick it out and just to show off to other people. When I showed my cousin Jason this knife, I was actually returning all the knives that he let me borrow to make a little video on his collection, and I gifted him a Spyderco. Well, he's not a fan of Spyderco because of their design language. He thinks they're ugly, and yes, Spyderco knives, well, they are pretty ugly, but they are undoubtedly extremely ergonomic knives, and they're wonderful in use. Absolutely wonderful, unquestionably wonderful in use in comparison to really any other brand and, you know, their design language. When I showed this to him, he was just like, God damn, man, what the hell are you doing? Freaking hunting gators with this thing or something? And he was just making fun of it because he's just like, dude, this thing is ginormous. And yes, they do make a small one. I believe it's a 3-inch blade. It's gonna be something that compares a little bit more to the small Sebenza 31 by Chris Reeve. And I did ask Wayne on Instagram. I was just like, so like, what do you think, you know, like the difference between the two? And he basically said the same thing, that it's a night and day difference between the two, and that he would definitely say that the Chris Reeve knives are a little bit more refined feeling, and that the Spartan Harseys are just not something that satisfied him, and that is completely okay. And I could see where he's coming from. How I received this unit, he never took it apart, didn't clean it, didn't sharpen it, didn't do nothing with it. Came in the original box. That original box is gone now. It's just the knife, and that's completely okay. I can see where he was coming from that, because the action left a lot to be desired. The edge itself, the blade, it's thick, and I put a sweet edge on there. I could definitely shave with this thing now, but and the way that it's shaped, there's so much flat up until you get to a little curve up here that it's actually really nice in use, but you do feel it going through material. It's not a super ultra slicer. It's definitely something that's a little bit more robust, but it is something that could be used for breaking down things like stuff in the kitchen or cardboard, or even some food prep, if that's something that you wanted to use a giant freaking $500 something folder for. So there's that. At this point, there really isn't a whole lot more that I feel like is worth mentioning. This is a giant hole in the blade for a lanyard. It's cool, it's whatever. Personally, I don't think it really needed to be there, but I'll count that as some weight relief, I suppose. Not by much, but yeah, this thing is big and brash and just super intense. The access to the lock bar, it's non-existent basically, and since tuning the detent and bringing over the bar a little bit to make it a little bit stronger, there's even less room now, and there is the slightest little chamfer right there you could see. But even still, this isn't something that a couch warrior would definitely appreciate playing with multiple times through, you know, a long period of just flipping it and just trying to make the most of it. But yeah, this is it's a weird one, and it's definitely interesting, and now it's going to be in the collection, and I'll be able to say I've experienced a Spartan Harsey full size, and I think that's pretty cool. So I like this thing overall. It has its time and place. It's not going to be something that's for everybody, and really I recommend it if you're in the market for something like this and you have deeper pockets and you want something that is gonna withstand the test of taking it to a freaking tree, like you can do with some cold steels, I'm sure. If you have deeper pockets, you want something that's made in the US, you don't mind that it's gonna be a little bit on the rougher side, a little bit less refined feeling, yeah, go for it. This thing is, it is epic to hold in hand, and it is is just ginormous and wonderful. You can do as much damage by throwing it as you can using the actual freaking blade. There are some people that offer regrinds. I know Neve's Knives, and I believe Stasa, he also had one of his get a regrind on it, and it looks pretty cool. I just personally don't think I'm gonna be doing that anytime soon. I'm just gonna leave it as is pretty much. But yeah, if you're in the market, go for it. I think that you'll actually get a good bit of enjoyment out of this thing. There are a lot of elements to this that are wonderful, and at the price range that it's at, to each their own if you could justify it. Me personally, I did not pay full price for this. I did not pay full, whether it's MSRP or retail price from an online retailer. I got this from another YouTuber, and I'm not hiding it at all. This is, you know, I am the second owner of this knife, so it was not brand new, but it came from a reputable individual in the community, and looking at that price and then feeling this thing and experiencing it for the time that I did use it, I could say that me personally, I don't think that it is at the price that it should be at. I would always want things to be a little bit more affordable, but if you have deeper pockets, go for it. If this is something that you're in the market for, I think you're really going to enjoy it. In use, it has been wonderful in the proper circumstances, of course. If you're used to things like, you know, the Vera engineering knives or Sabenzas by Chris Reeve, or even just anything else that is similar to this, just, you know, possibly overseas made, it's gonna be pretty different and it might not be for you. So I'm kind of indifferent about it. This is something that I can definitely appreciate, and for what it, you know, what it's bringing to the table essentially. But again, this isn't something that I would typically go for. So me personally, I wouldn't pay full price for this thing. I'm thankful that I didn't. So if this is something that you're looking for, I think you'll get a lot of use and enjoyment out of it. But just be warned, if you know, you're looking at this and you think it's going to be super refined feeling, sorry, it's not. But it is still an amazing knife. It has a lot to offer, and honestly, I think it looks pretty darn cool. So with that all being said, I will be linking down Spartan Blade Works and a couple other retailers that I believe do sell them periodically. I know Blade HQ has some stuff. Knife Center has some exclusive stuff. And I think that's about it. So with that all being said, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.